adjourn. And that is that this morning, this is the first board meeting that will be broadcast using the live streaming technology that we've installed and that we've adopted. I wonder if I could ask Carmen just a little bit of the protocols around the live streaming, where the public can access it and how it's accessible after the meeting and for posterity.
Thank you, Chair. We refer to our communications specialist, Michael Wills.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we posted the live stream on our website in a few locations under the events page, so we have an event for this board meeting, as well in the news section and in the main menu as well, where there's normally access to the meetings and minutes, as well at 9:30. Today we shared it on all of our social channels as well, promoting that we're live streaming today.
Thank you, sir. So at this point, the public could be watching this meeting from the convenience of their home or wherever computer access they have. And it was one of our stated goals that we would be more transparent, and one of the actions as a result of moving the meetings to daytime was that if you couldn't be here during the day, you could watch the proceedings at your convenience in the evening. So thank you, and thank you, Carmen and staff, for setting that up for us. So members, first item I'd like to ask if there are any declarations of conflict of interest from any of the items on the agenda. Seeing none, then I'll move on to an adoption. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, so that the agenda for the full authority meeting be adopted as presented. Members who want to make any changes, this is the time to do it. Member Joyner moves the agenda. Seconder, Member Shurkin. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Now, the next item of business is the approval of the minutes of the full authority board meeting of February 17th. And as well in that resolution, we'd like to cover the committee meetings of the Cave Springs Steering Committee and the Watershed Development Committee meeting. So members, does anyone want to speak to any of those minutes? Are there any errors or corrections that should be made? Seeing none, then I'll take a motion that the minutes of the full authority meeting held February 17th, 2016 be approved as presented, that the draft minutes of the Cave Springs Steering Committee held February 23rd, 2016 be received for information, and that the draft minutes of March 2nd, 2016 be received for information. Moved by Member Quirk, seconded by Member Casper-Setz. You ready for the question? Members, then all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Members, are there any business arising from the minutes that is not already addressed in this agenda that you'd like to bring up at this point? Seeing none, then we'll move to the correspondence list. There are 4 items on it. And we'd ask that if members have any questions of those correspondence, we would take them now. All right. The 4 items are the press release from March 11th regarding our Hot Watch event on March 25th. The Conservation Ontario letter dated March 14th regarding the city of Waukesha, Wisconsin, supporting the TRC's resolution. And third is the Lakehead Region Conservation Area letter of March 1st regarding Waukesha. Perhaps I didn't get that right. You can correct me if I don't. And the email dated March 2nd, Conservation Ontario's voting list. Carmen, do you have a couple of comments on those items?
I do, Chair. Thank you. So on the Lakehead region, and then also from reference to the Toronto Region Conservation Authority and Conservation Ontario, there's a community in the United States with and I'll do a phonetic pronunciation, is Waukesha. And this American population city is looking to divert water from the Great Lakes into their municipal water system. It's not being received well by the communities surrounding the Great Lakes, so that's why you're seeing some resolutions. And for your consideration, if you would support the resolution that would be in a negative response to the American community seeking to divert water from the Great Lakes system.
Thank you, Carmen. And members, do you have any other discussion on that? Member Joyner?
Thank you. So, the NPCA, this is obviously a First Nations area. What jurisdiction do we have, or what jurisdiction does the American government have over this?
Okay, through you, Chair, to Mayor Joyner. It is an international agreement on the water permitting of the Great Lakes systems. And within that international agreement, one can make an application. We are not an authority body, we're just a commenting body. But the authority body is those representatives who are identified in the international agreement. They've asked for comments. So by supporting a resolution, you'd be supporting that comment of that in a negative response.
So one last question to the CAO, you may not have the answer to this, but the Great Lakes St. Lawrence meetings, I think they're going to be held this spring sometime, or this summer sometime in Buffalo, hopefully. Do you know, is this on the agenda to be talked about?
No, but I can get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Members, I had on this same item, I have some comments as well, but Member Court, was it on this item? Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for you to Carmen. What are the options for, when you say it's taking out the Great Lakes system, whereabouts would they be drawing from? And what are the other options that they're to look at other than using it from the Great Lakes?
I don't know that through the chair to the member work. I don't know the specific technical parameters that could get that information, but my understanding is that they're on a currently they're on a municipal system. But drawing from the Great Lakes would provide on their application. My understanding is that they're making an application for a Great Lakes system to improve the water quality of their community. There is concern that in the event that this application was approved, that it would set precedents for other communities, both inside the United States and inside Canada, that it would set a precedent for further applications to be received.
Well, I can certainly appreciate that, but it's somewhat ironic that we get all our water from the Great Lakes system, and with the tragedy that's happening in Flint, Michigan, with their water sources contaminated and poisoning their water, that we have this great opportunity for fresh water and clean water, and then we're denying a community to draw from that like we do. So I won't be supporting anything that would endorse this at this time.
Thank you. Any other members? I wanted to make similar observations and suggest perhaps to the board that we receive this letter and see if there's any further information to be considered. It seems to me in Niagara, in Hamilton, I think, we draw from the Great Lakes, we use the water, we treat it, and we put it back in the Great Lakes. This community seems to me that's what they're looking for. So I'm not sure that there is a net loss unless they're drawing from the Great Lakes and then putting it down in Mississippi or something in that nature. So I understand the concern about consuming fresh water. I'm also fairly confident in how Niagara draws from the Great Lakes, uses it, treats it, and puts it back in the Great Lakes. And just the natural loss through evaporation of the natural cycle of water is not a great deterrent or not a great harm to the Great Lakes. So I understand what the concern might be, it seems like the other half of the equation is not here. And I would ask at this time, the board members that would receive the correspondence, if there's further information to be had, that this process results in a significant loss of net loss to the Great Lakes, then that's something we should be concerned about. So I would appreciate members' comments on that. And if anyone wants to, let's put it this way, if anyone wants to put forward a motion to endorse the position of the other two conservation authorities, I would welcome that. Otherwise, the motion on the floor is to receive these correspondence. We have no motion on the floor at this point. To be technical. Members, any further comment on that? Okay, so and then there's another item of correspondence regarding the Conservation Ontario correspondence. And that is where the Conservation Ontario has asked us, and perhaps Carmen can fill us in more. This is maybe the first time I've seen it, where the Conservation Authority has asked us to register our voting members at the Conservation Authority, Conservation Ontario. So it is an association of all the boards of the conservation authorities, and we meet probably 4 times a year, and we have, each authority has 1 vote, and then we designate and they've asked us to record who our voting members are. Now, we have had a bit of a debate over the last couple of years that we asking the conservation authorities to designate and give that voting authority to a board member, usually the board chair, or another board member. There has been some debate about some authorities give that voting authority to their CAO and hence relieve, I guess, the burden on the board chair to attend these meetings. So I have, and Carmen have, we have spoken at that Conservation Ontario, suggesting that really it should be there's an association of boards, and board members should take the voting responsibility at these meetings. So we need to, I think Carmen, perhaps you could guide us through, we need to have a resolution as to who our voting delegates are at this. I'll give it to you now.
All right, thank you, Chair. So board members at Conservation Ontario, this is where they do all their advocacy to the provincial and federal governments and other stakeholders. They set policy and comment on policy. So there's been a debate, and there will also be a further debate on April 11th at the annual meeting of who casts a ballot or vote at Conservation Ontario. Your chair has taken the position that it should be board members only, not management staff, who casts a ballot on policy issues. I would submit to you professionally, and that is a good approach. I think policy decisions should be developed by board members who are appointed by their respective municipalities and not staff. Staff can consult, recommend, provide timely information, suggest options, but it should be board members who vote on these policy issues and advocacy issues. So if you are supportive of that, Conservation Ontario would like it identified who would be the voting delegates. I would recommend that it would be the chair as the primary. The alternate would be the vice chair, and then you would want to have a second alternate. So another board member in addition to the chair and vice chair. And we would submit those names. So at any meeting of Conservation Ontario, if one of those 3 board members can attend, the other can attend, and therefore you have a formal resolution supporting that.
Thank you, Carmen. Well, members, given that we've just seen, or you've had this correspondence and this request is not yet in front of you in terms of a resolution, we could do this at the next board meeting, or we could take a motion from a member today. Mickey?
Yeah, on the water diversion, what are we going to do about it?
Mickey,
I'm against it.
okay. So the motion on the floor at this point on that matter is to receive for information.
Yeah.
supporting Carmen's recommendation was to be opposed.
Yeah, there was a piece on TV the other day about water diversion from here, in the Great Lakes, going all the way to California, pipelines.
Right.
And you get a guy like, what's his name, wants to be president, Trump. You get a guy like him, he'd start a war over the water.
We appreciate that, the comment, Mickey. And that was our concern, is that we get more information on this before we take a position, because it may be just like Niagara. They take the water out of the lake, use it, treat it, put it back into the lake. So this is not the way this is written, it doesn't really tell us what they do with the water, whether it returns to the lake or they put it in the Mississippi. So appreciate your concern on that, and that is our intention, is to get more clarification on that issue before we take a position on those two.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. So members,
2 to 13.
Sandy?
Yeah, further to your previous comment, I'll move that the chair has voting rights, the vice chair is his alternate, and I'll leave it up to the board chair to the second alternate will be able to do that process.
Thank you, Sandy. So members are looking for a volunteer to be second alternate. And these meetings happen 4 times a year, and they tend to be at Black Creek Conservation Area in Toronto.
Yeah,
James?
I'll second the motion for member Passos.
All right, then we'll take it as a moved by Sandy, seconded by member Joyner, that the voting delegate be the chair, first alternate the vice chair, and second alternate is member Cascosets. Members, are you ready for the question? All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Then I need a motion to move and a seconder to receive the 4 items of correspondence. Member Joyner? Member Sherton? All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you, members. The next item on the agenda is the chairman's remarks, and we'll try to be brief this morning, but I do want to take the opportunity to address one of our mission statements, and that was that, it was actually our vision statement. That our vision was to balance conservation and sustainable development for future generations by engaging landowners, stakeholders, and communities through collaboration. And over the last month, probably 2 months, we have been engaging to a great deal. We've had a number of consultation meetings, information meetings, covering a number of subjects. And one of the questions that often comes up has been, why is the Conservation Authority doing this now, whatever the subject is? And I would answer as the chairman for the last few years, and I think on behalf of the board, is that this board has determined over the last few years that we were going to be proactive, and proactive in a number of areas. We have been proactive on the Binbrook Master Plan. We've been proactive on the Cave Springs Master Plan. We've been proactive on floodplain mapping, because it had to be addressed. And more recently, we've been proactive in response to a provincial request that the board respond to the province's review of the Conservation Authorities Act and their wetland policies. We have decided and taken the direction of the board to be proactive and not to sit back and wait for Queen's Park or some other commentary agency to set our directions. And I think that's the tone that we have adopted, and I thank the board for being progressive and proactive on these issues. That has been, I think, was our intent when we did the whole new strategic plan. And we've been, I think, successful in terms of the number of people that have responded to our engagement. And the quality of the discussion and the interest has been very rewarding, and we are certainly meeting that target of engaging the landowners, the stakeholders, the general public, and the community at large. So I just want to thank you for that, and you'll see throughout the minutes of this meeting some of the responses and as a result of those engagements. And once again, thank you to the board for taking on that proactive role. I know it does bring some conversations and not always sweetness and roses, but they are very instructive and very helpful to the mission and vision of this Conservation Authority. So thank you for that, and I'll ask now Carmen for your comments on our activities over the last month. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Just going to update you on 2 items. The first item is the Canadian Motor Speedway project. So Peter Graham and I, we've attended checkpoint meetings with the proponent of the project. It's a significant project, so there are checkpoint meetings. It also includes the town of Fort Erie in the region of Niagara. And we have an involvement because the site plan application is to be submitted soon to the town of Fort Erie. We'll be providing our comments on behalf of the region on environmental issues as per regional policy. We'll also be providing comments on our role in the Conservation Authorities Act in Section 28, and more specifically the stormwater management plan of the site, the groundwater plan of the site, and then also any wetland issues, which includes the relocation of Miller's Creek. It's in 2 phases. First phase is to be near complete, and the second phase is to be our plans to be submitted to us for comment. So we are quite involved in the project. It's moving along as we start receiving the site plan applications and the following reports. We'll be updating this board appropriately at how we're moving forward and what our comments are. If there are any concerns or if there's any recommendations we require from the board to submit to the applicants of the project. The second,
Thank you, Carmen. Are there any questions from the board members to the CAO on those comments? Carry on, Carmen, thanks.
And the second thing that we're quite involved with is the official plan for the town of Niagara on the lake. Again, it's Peter's division that's the main driver. So the town of Niagara on the lake is within their, in the midst of their official plan review and their consultation. I believe they're in their second edition of their draft plan. They're seeking comments. There is one issue that we're involved with, which is the issue's been parked, and that is the contemporary watercourse mapping project. So all the watercourses within the municipality, all the drains, and what are the setbacks to all those watercourses. So yesterday, Peter Graham and I, we met with the reps from the region of Niagara and the reps from the town of Niagara Lake. We came to consensus as how to move forward and how to establish which are the water courses, what are your classifications, and what should the appropriate setbacks be. We agreed to hire a consultant, cost sharing, cost of a consultant, and to proceed with that. The reason why it's important is that when the other 11 municipalities then undertake their official plans, which is scheduled throughout the years as per the Municipal Act, we will have had a good precedent setting with the town of Niagara Lake on how to establish parameters for watercourse mapping. And so that's why it's very key for us, because it will set precedents when other official plans come online for review. So just give you an update on that, and when the official plan gets released sometime in June, we'll bring it to this board for your comments.
Thank you. Carmen, members, any questions or comments to the CAO on those? Thank you. Thank you, Carmen. Then I'd like to move to Carmen has one more thing.
Sorry, and I want to go to the Director of Corporate Services for the introduction of new staff.
Thank you, Mr. CEO and Chair. I'd ask at this time if John Wallace might stand. I'd like to recognize John Wallace as our new manager of finance. He brings with him over 25 years of public sector finance experience, most recently as controller of the Niagara Parks Commission. He is well credentialed with accounting designations and has already made significant contributions here at the Conservation Authority over the last 2 weeks. I am confident in stating that the board, as well as the residents that the NPCA serves, will be well served by John Wallace in this role. So, John, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Welcome, Mr. Wallace. We look forward to working with you over the next few years. And with that, members, I'd like to take us to the item 6, and that is the project status reports. And we have, you have before you a number of reports: the watershed status, the operations status, and the corporate services. And I see Mr. Graham is rising, that he wants to make some comments on something. We do generally have a motion to receive all of these reports for information. And I would look forward to that motion if members have specific questions to Mr. Graham after he makes some remarks. Then I'll entertain those before we take the motion. So Peter, welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to reiterate what Member Beattie had mentioned to me just before the meeting got going. That, Mr. Graham, you got it right. All right. So we have been making numerous tweaks to our status reports, and really appreciated the input and feedback to date on that. So I think we're really honing in terms of providing you with the information that you need to provide a really clear update to the board in terms of what's happening in the watershed management area. So really what we wanted to do, and it speaks to the chair's comments already in terms of 2 really key elements to our strategic plan, and that's the Welland River floodplain mapping study, as well as the review of our primary policy document. So in order to, again, continue that level of transparency and engagement, we want to make sure, absolutely, that our board is being apprised in terms of the status of those key projects. So we really felt it was worthwhile to have the 2 consultants that are driving those processes, not driving, but helping to facilitate, specifically on a consultation perspective, those 2 key projects. So I'm going to welcome number 1 to start things off, if it's okay with the chair. We're going to call up Patty Tandy with Glen Consulting, and we'll be providing an update on our policy review.
It is indeed okay with the chair. Please come forward. If someone, staff, I need a little help with my computer up here. Thanks. Go ahead.
Good morning, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I have a short presentation to walk you through here, and basically giving you the highlights of the work we've done today on our policy project. For the benefit of the gallery and those who are going to be watching on WeeStream, I'm going to cover some of the stuff that I covered in my first visit to you, just some context and the drivers of the study, so apologies for any little bit of repetition you get from that. So this policy document project is about updating the NPCA's current set of policies. It's known as Policies, Procedures for the and Guidelines for the Administration of Ontario Regulation 155-6 and Land Use Management Policy Document. This document is kind of the day-to-day decision-making tool that staff use when they make decisions on permits and when they provide comments on dynamic applications, that sort of thing. It's an actual fairly complex, it has to speak to a very complex set of provincial and federal regulations that the NPCA operates under. And so this little diagram kind of tries to communicate some of that. The policies speak to the CA's responsibilities under the Planning Act, specifically under the provincial policy statement, the Greenbelt Plan, growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the Niagara Escarpment Plan, a whole bunch of local official plans and municipal bylaws. Policies also have to speak to your mandates under the Conservation Authorities Act, they have to speak to the Clean Water Act, various aspects of the Environmental Assessment Act, where the CA is providing comments on environmental assessments that are being undertaken in its watershed, as well as a whole bunch of other supplementary regulations. So the document is intended to sort of be not necessarily though it is really the one-stop document, reference document for staff to provide some guidance on how to make decisions. It speaks to, at the same time, it has to speak to, and in the current document it does this today, but it's not always so obvious, but it does have to speak to its role as a regulator under the Conservation Authorities Act, Section 28. You issue permits, it has to speak to your role where you delegated potential interests under the policy statement. So it's public comment body, research management agency, service provider as well. You could also add landowner to that piece. So the document is fairly complex because it has to speak to all these different circumstances and nuances. From a thematic perspective, the types of topics the current plan covers, or the current policy document covers, is your water course policy, floodplain policy, valley lands, hazard lands, wetlands, the Great Lakes shorelines, provides direction on a bunch of discrete topics, including fish habitat. And maybe we can get this. Sorry about that. Was that your
Really?
Yeah, that's okay.
Subject matter expert. You know any songs?
No, I have a hard copy. I can keep rolling here. So the document does provide direction for some discrete topics as well. Fish habitat, significant wildlife habitat, policies on your sensitive groundwater features, links to your role in preparing EISs, and some of your land acquisition policies. And then there's also a whole bunch of technical guidelines that staff use when they're doing review of stormwater management plans and reviewing aspects of natural channel design. So this document provides links to those pieces as well. The main driver for the update, as most of you, or all of you are clearly aware, is that firstly the strategic plan, and speaking to the chairman's earlier comments about being proactive, this was a priority project for staff and the board to get this policy document updated. Not only because there are certain policies in it that are dated, that don't speak to the current legislative framework, but also simply from a communications and clarity standpoint, there are sections of the document that aren't always so clear, that could be more effectively communicated. Within this context, we're also aware that the Conservation Authorities Act is under review. The province is also reviewing a whole bunch of its major provincial plans and policies as well. So, to the extent possible, those changes will be incorporated into this review. The process we have for the project is a three-phase process. Tick marks kind of indicate the work we've been done today. So sort of midway through, we're really about to launch into a significant portion of both public engagement and generation of the technical documents. The first phase, we sort of did created a website, did a bit of a soft launch to the project, creating some awareness, doing some pop-up engagement in the community, just simply to let people know this project's happening. Right now, where we're at is we have prepared a first kind of rough draft of our discussion paper. This discussion paper is intended to cover some of the policy issues related to the different themes I highlighted earlier. We'll be doing some public engagement on those things and feedback on that. The document isn't quite ready for release, so I will be back in a month or two to share with some of those findings. The final phase of the project is actually writing the policies, and we'll be engaging fairly frequently through that as well. On this slide, I'm not going to go through it in detail, but this sort of does communicate the breadth of engagement groups that we're meeting with, that include both themselves, the Community Liaison Advisory Committee, the core working group, that includes staff from the municipalities and the jurisdictional watershed, as well as the province. There's a bunch of public engagement activities and engagement with First Nations community. So there is a website for the project that's up and running. We've got not quite 1,000 hits on it, but certainly a fair amount of traffic has gone to the website at different points throughout the project, and we have a mailing list. We provide updates to people who want to join the mailing list and be aware of it. Went with your CLAC, very planners. We were out and did a public engagement kind of roadshow, as I said, and we also did a small survey, and just to kind of provide a bit of initial sort of soft launch of this survey is really about. This roadshow activity is part of 2 roadshows we're doing. We did one in the fall. We're doing one when we have the draft policies. We're doing sort of pop-up events at the community, spending the day at different events, just trying to get people's more intimate face-to-face feedback on some of the content of the document. The survey that I referenced earlier had the objective of really doing 2 things. One, to drive traffic, to get people to come to the website so that they could be aware of the project. So it was sort of not necessarily a scientific survey, but a survey that we designed to get some perceptions that people had of the current policies that NPCA has. We got about 120 responses, which from my perspective is pretty good for something like policy. It's really hard to get people to be engaged in policy, which can be a little abstract. So some of the key things that came out of it, though, were telling. Certainly respondents did believe that generally a lot of the policies in place are fairly strong and there's fairly robust protection of the areas that fall under your mandate. We asked the question to the respondents whether they were concerned with climate change. At 83% said they were. Just under 7% felt that the NPCA has a role to play in dealing with climate change. And there were some suggestions in the survey of what they might do, whether it's promotion of best practices elsewhere or providing more of a leadership role. We met with your CLAC, your Community as an Advisory Committee, back before Christmas. Interesting conversations there about some of the early issues that they received. On the one hand, there's desire for more flexibility to recognize some of the unique geographic circumstances, whether for the development community or for the farming community. Concerns about perhaps over-regulation, but at the same time, there's on the other side of the equation, there's also concerns that Niagara has this very unique set of features and functions. It's a very diverse environment, and that needs to be protected and maintained as well. So the devil will be in the details, I suppose, when we come back with policies and deal with some of those opposite ends of the equation. Some of the other things that came up in this through this conversation was that just the lack of understanding of how the policies work and who regulates what. So the document certainly can speak to that and the role the province plays in wetland evaluation and that sort of thing. When we also did a staff session, and we sort of had a very nuts and bolts discussion with your staff about what works well in the current document and what doesn't work well, and some of the ideas that came out of that. Desire to benchmark the current policies against what people do elsewhere to see how your set fits with other places, and that perhaps an opportunity to reorganize the document so it's more easier, more user-friendly, and more accessible to both themselves and the public. So the next steps really are to finalize our discussion paper, which is really the first sort of toe in the water, putting our toe in the water, talking about what some of the issues are and how they could be addressed. We'll be back to present those findings to you within the next month or 2. And after that, we'll be releasing the draft document and looking for more feedback from the public, stakeholders, and agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent review of the process, and I'd ask the members if you have any questions of the presenter. Member Joyner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sir, can I get you to state your name and which company you're with again?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my name is Patty Kennedy, and I'm a planner with the Consultant.
Did you say Patty?
Patty, P-A-D-D.
Okay, thank you. Can you just, for the members of the board here, just happy St. Patrick's Day today, Patty? Well, I've never met Patty before. Oh, that's like Patrick, not Patty. Why are you here? What has the board asked you to do for us? And you're obviously giving us a report and a brief overview as to your findings going forward. just in a brief description, tell the board why you're here.
So the mandate for the project is to take your current set of policies that your staff use to make decisions on all applications, be they site plan applications at the municipality level or your development permits, and update it, modernize it, make it more user-friendly, make it more efficient, make it more responsible, make it more current.
Okay, thank you. And we've tasked you with this, why? Because of our strategic plan initiatives?
Yeah, this comes out of a couple of drivers that it comes out of. One is that your strategic plan to clearly identify this project as a priority and needs to be updated. As I highlighted as well, the province has changed certain regulations, and so the policies are out of date in some places and they need to be updated.
So thank you for that. So one of the slides that you have, and I can't remember which one it is because I'll be asking for this slide deck to be given to all members of the board. It's not on our package right here. Did you know that? Okay. We'll be asking, or I'll be asking for that to be put into or given to us by notes later on. One of the slide decks here says all the different people that are involved and why we're actually doing this. And you made a comment. You said, quite honestly, probably one of the other people who should be involved in this are the landowners. I didn't see that there.
So the members of the public are basically your landlords. They are involved and are going to continue to be involved.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair. One of the roadshows, as you called it, happened actually to be in my municipality at the West Lincoln Arena. I look back at my calendar because I usually follow that quite closely, and I didn't see that in my calendar, and I don't ever recall ever the NPCA telling me that the roadshow would be in West Lincoln. Now, there was a bunch of different areas there. They went to the Glen Arena. I'd be quite interested to know if Member Casper says and Member Beatty knew that they were going to be in the Glen Arena for this roadshow. I think we could be your biggest advocates here as the board of directors of the NPCA. I think it's very wise that you let us know where you're going to have this roadshow so that you can have representation there to help with some of the questions too as well. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I would appreciate perhaps you could take the moment as an answer. A question for Peter is the notification of these public engagement sessions, road shows. Now that was done, perhaps I'll ask Peter to answer that.
And look, we're very well. No, very, very good points. Last year, that's when the roadshow initially started to kind of just launch things, right, to kind of create an awareness. And absolutely, I think we could have done a better job in making sure the advisory notices were sent out well in advance to make sure everyone was aware that we were doing that. So that I would take that on myself in terms of certainly wasn't the consultant's responsibility, that was ours as staff. So we'll make sure as we head into this really critical next phase that we'll make sure that those notices are sent out well in advance. Everybody's fully aware. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Peter. And Member Joyner, when we get to, I'll take a motion to receive this in the next presentation, and we'll include that in the motion, both of your request for the slide decks and an improved notification of the board members and the general public on these presentations. Thank you. Member Jess?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to kind of what Member Joyner said. It would have been really helpful to have this presentation ahead of time, because we're kind of looking, going, where did this come from? And I know it was very briefly mentioned in our agenda, but it would have been nice to be able to review this when we reviewed the package and then, have a better idea of what was going on. So I just want to make that comment.
Well, thank you. And I think that there's a way to approach that, is that we will have these slides included in your minutes. And then next meeting, when we come to business arising from the minutes, I invite you to raise any questions at that point that come from these slide decks. So your presentation, Mr. Kenny, and the next one, and we have 4 presentations this morning, 2 from staff. So we'll kind of carry that general theme, and we'll have all of those included, and invite your questions or comments at the next board meeting. Okay? Thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Chair. seems to be when we're going through the strategic planning process, we had 5 working groups along together. One of them dealt with policy. And because there's such a breadth and depth of policy, they worked on a template basically to do the analysis of policy. Was that template in fact employed, or was it modified in terms of undertaking this larger study?
Good question, thank you. Peter or Patty? See how the luck of the Irish holds up for you today.
No, we did get that package, so we reviewed the policy sort of package and process that was prepared for the strategic plan, are incorporating it. You'll see elements of it, the mapping, sort of the decision-making matrix that was done at the table. A little more complex than perhaps we were able to use in our public communication pieces, but to the extent possible, we incorporated that aspect, and hopefully you'll see it when we release this report.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I think one of the reasons or desires looking at the whole comprehensive review was very clearly say to the public at large, and landowners specifically, this is the source of this particular policy, because we're directed by multiple sources, anatomies, et cetera, and the degree to which there is or is not flexibility in terms of the interpretation. Will such a, I'll call it a user-friendly guide, be one of the products resulting from this study?
Thank you, Brian. Any other members? Thank you, Patty. Peter, we have, you've heard the message from the board, and hopefully Lisa has done her best to capture them. So I appreciate you bringing the update to us. And it's obviously, from the members' questions, it was obviously due and very helpful today. So we'll look forward to follow up the next meeting to some of these questions. Next presenter, Peter.
Yes, just a really quick introduction. Again, MMM Group was, we obtained the services of that group to help facilitate and obviously do the technical work into the floodplain mapping for the Welland River floodplain mapping study. And I just want to call upon Major Burry, whose consultation expertise has really been appreciated, and she'll be providing an update in terms of where we stand with that particular study or project. So, thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter, Mr. Chair, members of the board, members of the gallery, and those that are watching your live stream at home or at their computer in the office. It's my pleasure to be here before you again, seeing some familiar faces. I know that this presentation may not be in your package either, and I will ensure that that happens when you get your minutes. So I'm here just to give you a brief update on the consultation program that we recently completed for the floodline mapping project. I know a number of you will have an opportunity to attend one of the 4 public meetings that were held, and I am happy to tell you that they, in my opinion, and certainly the opinion of the floodplain committee, have been very successful. So I want to commend you as a board for being very proactive in engaging your community on this very important topic. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the approach that we use and sort of the summary that we are finalizing. Then I want to talk to you a little bit about next steps, because we are planning a second round of consultation, and I need to update you on a recommended change to that process. So as you know, we had 4 meetings throughout the sort of river area, and we had a combination of some presentation boards, and then we did a presentation, and then we had a facilitated discussion. Lots of people participating. This was our very first session in Chippewa, and at the Willoughby Memorial Arena. For those of you who were there, know that we had lots of people and a very lively discussion, and we were able to iron out some of the kinks in our process. And so I do appreciate your patience and the community's patience as we work through that. I will tell you that we had a total of 407 people sign in officially. But I always do a little head count myself, because not everybody likes to sign in, and I can tell you that we had over 600 people, okay, attending these sessions. So you can see the numbers throughout the 4 meetings, but there definitely were more people that did attend. The Conservation Authority Board have made sure that they have, staff have made sure that they have updated the database of information so that we do have a list of people's names and where they want to be communicated with. We have that preference noted. Some more slides of the boards. I will tell you that we also gave opportunities for people to give comments back. So we had 177 people provide either these small comment cards, and if you remember, they were sort of noted with a little dot in the corner with a number that allowed it to correspond to the flag that we gave people to pin into the maps, so that they had an opportunity to show us exactly where they were located in the community. So we had 177 of those cards returned. Some really great input that will be included in the summary report. We also provided an opportunity for people who wanted to give more that might fit on a small comment card to use a long form card. They weren't as popular, we only got 14 of those back, but still some very useful information. This is what I call the word cloud, okay? And this is just a visual representation of some of the key themes, some of the key words that were coming out of all of the consultation that we did. So the discussion that happened, the questions that were asked, but also that input that was coming through the comment cards. The larger the size of the word, sort of more, it represents how many times it was repeated. So we had a lot of conversation about property value, about OPG, operations and compensation, taxes and the impact that this might have. We also heard a lot about storm sewers, particularly down in the Chippewa area, water quality, development implications. We heard a lot about the stipends, again related to OPG. Some of the biodiversity came up. The mandate came up a lot. Why are you doing this? Why is it important? All of those are really good pieces of information, and you will get more detail on that when I finish preparing the consultation summary report. But this is just intended to give you a visual representation of kind of what we were hearing at a point in time. Each meeting, we've kind of given you a summary of some of the key themes. So the meeting number 1, property values, taxes, OPG. You know, we heard a little bit more about the river's health and improving that, and infrastructure in meeting number 2. Again, the river's health and the flood line, existing versus proposed, was a theme in meeting number 3. OPG and river health again in meeting number 4. Some of the questions. So those of you who participated in these sessions know that we had sort of an open forum discussion. Some of the questions that we heard, what's wrong with the 1985 line and what's triggering this current review? How will the study impact my insurance and the property value? Will there be any tax exemptions? What is the impact of OPG to the water levels and the sedimentation? My commitment to you at the beginning of this process was that every question that was asked will be answered. So we did our best to answer them in the moment, but they will be documented and they will be included in the consultation summary report. And that will be made available to you, but also to the public when we have it ready for discussion at the committee level, and then certainly for your approval. So I want to go on to next steps. And as you know, we're working to complete the consultation summary report, and we'll be circulating that to the committee. It will get posted on the website. We need to address any needs for any specific follow-up. So there were some specific questions that were asked, or some stakeholders who had some specific questions, and we need to get some additional technical work done in order to be able to answer those questions and feed that into the technical element of the process. We also need to make preparations for round 2 of the information sessions. The advertising and the mailouts of those need to happen soon. You will remember that I talked about doing that second round in April. So in reality, we were supposed to be having the second round starting in about a week's time. Based on the input that came out of the first round of consultation, we had a very good discussion at the committee, and those are members of the board who are members of the committee will hopefully reiterate this comment, that it was very clear that we need to have more technical information on the second element of the modeling exercise before we go back out to the public. So if you remember when I gave my original presentation, and Mark, my colleague, Mark Hartley was here with me, we talked about there are two elements to this. There's the hydrologic model, how the water comes down and gets to the river, and then the hydraulic modeling, which is how the water runs in and down the river. We were going to be in a position to deal with the first technical work in April, but not the second. And I felt that based on the input that we received in the first round of consultation, to go out to the public without the ability to talk in any detail about the water running in and down the river was not going to be productive. Okay? People want to talk about that, and I want to talk to them about it. So we made a decision at the committee level and to delay the consultation until late May and June in order to allow our technical team to do the work necessary for us to be able to have that meaningful conversation. So we will be doing the second round of consultation in June. Those dates are being finalized and will be confirmed next week at the committee meeting. And you will receive meeting notices for that so that you can make sure that you have them in your calendar. And they will be at the same sort of general locations as they were held previously. And then that will give us an opportunity to have the kind of conversation that both your community wants to have about this topic, but also allow us to get the information that we need back in order to be able to finish our work and give you a recommendation of a draft flood line in the late fall. Okay, so that's the one thing I wanted to make sure you as a board understand, is that we have made a change to the timing of the second round, but I do think it's going to result in a more meaningful process. Okay, and I think I said all of that. That's everything I have.
Thank you, Andrea. And members, do you have questions to the presentation? And I would just remind you that we did receive the minutes of this committee meeting earlier today. And I think some of your last point about the timing. In the minutes, we suggested there would be a meeting of the floodplain committee March 30th. And are we still on track for that, or are you suggesting?
Next week, I think it's March 30th. Right. Lisa, is that correct?
Okay. So that committee will be meeting March 30th.
Yeah.
And I think Mayor Campbell will be adding the Glen representative to that committee by motion a little bit later today. Member Joyner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andrew, thank you for your presentation. You're doing a great job. I want to be the first to tell you that. You and your team are doing a great job, okay? The floodplain committee is getting together on a regular basis, and they are doing a great job. I think it's a team. I think there's a lot of input being given to you, so you're getting full direction as to how to do this and implement all of these public engagement committee meetings. And I don't want to say it's hard for me to say that, but I was your biggest skeptic in the beginning, as you will remember.
Yes, I do remember, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your comments.
And you're doing an excellent job as being a facilitator. I think it's so important that you brought this out to say that the two technical components, the hydrologic and the hydraulic components of the second round of meeting is very important that we do give the people the technical information, because they're very skeptical. They believe that they're coming out to these meetings right now and there's no need. And I think I think your professionalism and the floodplain committee's professionalism and realizing that this is an important issue has now been able to make that decision that we need to, slow that, go a different direction, because that was very important for us to realize together, both your team and our team, to say people need technical information. So that's all I wanted to say. I just want to know that the meeting notices and it will be the same circulation going out to the people.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, Mayor Jordan, definitely the process that was used in the first round is going to be repeated in the second round.
Okay, and I just want to add one further comment that you said that this is a more meaningful process. I couldn't agree more, 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Joyner. Member Beatty.
Thank you, and you know, everything that was said by Councilor Joyner. The one venue in Chippewa was a very crowded venue. I think we have an alternative. Are you aware of that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we definitely have a new location for the Chippewa meeting, if I'm correct. Peter, it's at the Legends, where did Peter go to? At Legends, at the golf course. So lots of room there, and I do apologize that the room in Chippewa for round one was smaller than ideal, and we have made other arrangements.
Okay, and the only other observation I have, I attended only the first meeting. I was somewhat surprised at the relatively low attendance as well. And I'm wondering whether we can do a press article prior to the next one.
in the house.
To try and promote involvement. So I would think that people would have as much concern about this issue as the people in Elgin and Western and Lincoln.
Mayor Jeffs, Member Jeffs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was actually Mayor Joyner that noticed this on one of the slides, when you have the word cloud. And I like how you did the words in large letters in print. But we were both surprised that mandate wasn't larger, because I attended only the Wellandport meeting, and it seemed like and I wasn't there for the whole thing, but every other person was asking about the mandate piece and who was mandating this and if it was actually mandated. So I guess I'm questioning the accuracy, and I just with all due respect, but we were both kind of surprised by that. So I guess my question is, you found that wasn't as relevant as compensation, let's say, like that, but I was surprised. I know some of the landowners association had mentioned compensation, but I thought mandate was the more prominent one.
Through you.
Give it a try. The big button on the,
There we go. Just have to figure out which button I need to push. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, definitely. The word cloud is a work in progress, and it is being refined based on input that we received at the committee level. Certainly some additional analysis that has happened. We did not recreate the word cloud from the time I presented it at the committee meeting, but it has been updated, and there is a newer version that will be included in the summary report, and it has some additional words and it has some additional emphasis as well. So your point is well taken.
Thank you, Mayor Jeffs, and I do recognize you're absolutely right. That seemed to be the question: why now? Why do we have to do it? And perhaps a suggestion is the legislation that put us and gave us this responsibility for floodplain management came down in the 70s, and if that's still the mandate, then perhaps that should be included in the process and included in I would ask that that be included in our minutes from today for board members' benefit. We do have that legislation is our mandate, and I don't think we've actually seen it in a long time, so perhaps that would be helpful.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, there was a number of questions related to legislation, related to mandate in the question and answer period. And so there is a detailed response that has been confirmed by staff and sort of legal team to make sure that we are reporting it properly. And that will, I think, help give some additional backup.
Thank you. And how soon would that part be produced for the board's consumption?
I'm hoping to have a draft of it to discuss with the committee next week, and so I suspect that you should have it at your next meeting, if all goes well at the committee level.
Thank you. I look forward to that. Member Joyner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and this is for you. Actually, that is actually why, in my opinion, why the work that the folks from Glen Consulting and working through our strategic priorities and our strategic plan is so important, because given the word that mandate comes up in a lot of these different meetings, that is exactly the work that Glen is doing. What is our mandate at the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority? So I think that's why it's so important that we outline what our strategic plan is and our strategic priorities to be doing, because I see these two works being done right now as being dovetailed together. So in just stating that, that is why we want as much input into our strategic plan as possible.
Thank you. I think you're making an important connection between the policy and one of the things that we have been looking at through this whole mapping process is the policy and how we apply the data, the lines that are produced from a scientific technical basis, then what's the policy around those? And those two things that are working in parallel. Mayor Jess?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, the agenda for our next floodplain meeting, which I believe we said March 30th, so that's next Wednesday, and I plan on attending because we're talking about mandate, and it's something that I think we throw around a lot loosely, and I'm not going to get into it today. Today's not the time, but I'm hoping there's an opportunity to address that at the next floodplain meeting. So will we be open to that sort of discussion at the next meeting? I don't know who to look to for that.
I'll ask Andrew.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, Madam Mayor, the opportunity to adjust the agenda is fine, and I will make those adjustments and update my presentation deck when I get back to the office.
Okay. Members, any further questions to the presentations? See none, and thank you. Well presented. Peter, is there any further items you want to bring under the watershed status report number 22? So, members, if we need no further answers or questions under that report, I'd ask for a motion specifically for this, to receive the presentations, including the suggestions that an improved notification to the board be addressed, that the slide decks of both presentations be included in the minutes, and that the member 80's concern about the policy development process developed through our strategic plan be addressed and incorporated into the policy review process that Delta Consulting is using. So member Dart is moving that motion, but I hope Lisa has it all down. We'll make sure it reflects everything. And a seconder, Brian? You ready for the question? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, members, for a very good discussion. It's helpful that the presentations are brought forward and the board engage in those discussions. And I do invite you all to attend our floodplain meeting on March 30th. I'm confident that the municipalities most directly affected will be well represented there. Brian, before we go to the next report, Brian?
Just in that regard, I think we made a very valuable decision as to happen at this meeting. Are we contemplating doing it at maybe such as floodplain meeting?
Well, we just increased the budget, I suppose, but I'll ask Carmen what our intention is at this point.
We don't, through your chair to member meeting, we don't have those plans. We require direction of the board.
We require direction of the board and some additional budget to set up the facility. All right, members, let's move on to the operations status report number 23. And we do have, I think, 2 staff presentations to go along with that. Mr. Brickle, are you going to take the podium for us?
I don't need to take the podium, but board members will recall that at the last meeting, we received correspondence from Conservation Ontario calling for action with respect to the invasive species Phragmites australis, and we thought that would be a good opportunity to provide information and more of a contextual discussion about invasive species on our property. So I would bring forward Kim Folek, our ecologist, to deliver that presentation, as well as information for photos related to the Waterbury Trails.
Thank you. Well, as Kim gets this set up, I do appreciate that the quality of the presentation and the screen is really getting better every meeting. We'll notice here that we have this capacity to include sort of screen on screen, so that at least I can see and what's being broadcast through the live stream. Just like members of council, remember we have that at the council chamber see just how the screening is, what the public is seeing on the other end of this presentation. So, it appeared, so that's very dangerous to watch this and not watch the live, because it is probably 2 seconds anyway, delay. And I have no setting there. Only the radio, maybe the radio guys can give us one of those. But there's some radio experience in the corporation that's putting together our live streaming for us, so. I think we're ready now, Kim.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, member of the boards, and member of the gallery. So I was asked to do a brief presentation on invasive species and their control. Briefly, what I'll describe is just a definition, the concern for species, invasive species. I'll provide an example using Phragmites australis, some control strategies, Conservation Ontario's initiative, or the Conservation Authority, what we do in our efforts. So as a basis, invasive species is defined as an exotic, alien, foreign, non-indigenous, or introduced species. It's a plant, an animal, or other organism, such as a fungus, bacteria, or virus. It's introduced by humans to a particular location, and it's outside of its natural range. It's also perceived to cause damage to the environment, human economy, or human health. So it has to be all of these. Some examples for plants are Phragmites australis, garlic mustard, purple loosestrife, buckthorn, Japanese knotweed, dog strangling vine, periwinkle, white mulberry. In the fish category, it's round goby, rudd, Eurasian ruffy, sea lamprey, spiny water flea. There's also insects such as the brown marmorated stink bug, spotted wing, Asian longhorn beetle, emerald ash borer, gypsy moth. In the pathogens, which is a bacteria that can cause disease, there's butternut canker, American chestnut disease, oak wilt, fungus, white nose syndrome, chronic wasting disease, and these are only a few of the invasive species. Here are some of the pictures of the species that were mentioned. So what is the concern about invasive species? The concern is that they threaten biodiversity and they affect native species and their habitat. So they directly compete with native populations for their light, nutrients, moisture, and food, and they can also alter conditions, so they'll have a chemical that they can release that will inhibit growth of other plant species, native species around them. How do they spread? It can be a variety of different ways. It can be by wind or water, gravel, it can be by livestock, it can be by recreation on the wheels of ATVs or on the bottom portions of boats. It can be contaminated sea mulch or hay. It can be in movement of uncleaned equipment, and it can be garden plantings that have escaped. As an example, one of the examples of an invasive species is Phragmites australis. It's aggressive. It is one of the plants that releases toxins that inhibits native plants growing around it. It prefers standing water, but it does have long root systems, so it can tap into other sources. It can crowd out native, or it does crowd out native vegetation, resulting in decreased plant biodiversity. So it'll have less of a value of habitat or food for native species. It grows quickly and it transpires quicker than native species, so it'll have a lower water table. What is it when we're dealing with invasive species? How do we control it? Well, we have to look at a number of different factors, so it'll be different in every case. We look at the extensiveness of the establishment of the plant or the invasive, its effect on the environment and ecology as well as economy, its life cycle, so you know how to address it, and also available resources, including funding. Types of strategy, there's 5. One is prevention, so that's when it's not in the area, so you're preventing it from happening. Eradication is when it is a very small population, it's easy to remove. Containment is when it's a large population in a particular area and you're preventing it from going elsewhere, such as the emerald ash borer when it was in southwestern Ontario. Controlling is when it is a larger population, very large population, so then you're focusing on high-value conservation areas or habitats and preventing invasion of new species and survival of other species coming in. And the last control measure is education. A number of these aren't exclusive of the other, they can be combined, and education is important, providing the information to the public so that they are familiar with it and can help prevent it or can do something about it, and also collaboration with neighboring areas, because if there's an invasive in one area, it's difficult to control if it's beside another. So overall, when you're dealing with invasive species in the control, the smaller, less pervasive populations, the outliers, are easiest to control. And then as you get farther into the core population, which is what this example shows, the red line is the easiest, outliers there's fewer. As you get into the orange area, then it's a little more difficult to control. And then the yellow area, it's pervasive. So overall, when you're dealing with the strategy of an invasive species, you're looking at, for it to be effective, you have to have a balance with economy and ecology. Control, with Conservation Ontario, they recently submitted a letter to the Premier of Ontario requesting support for Phragmites australis. And they're looking for a province-wide coordinated effort to help control this invasive. Also looking for approval with MOEE for herbicide application, aerial treatment, and also assistance for funding to help reduce this species. There are other government agencies that provide control, tools, education, and funding, as well as chemical options, which assist the Conservation Authority with our efforts. For example, federal and provincial governments have legislation monitoring, they do research and control information for eradication. There's other agencies such as Ontario Invading Species Awareness Program and Ontario Plant Invasion Council, which has information, provides education to the public, but also has information on how to eradicate or control these species. And at the Conservation Authority here, we support these initiatives and efforts because obviously we want to assist in the protection of native plants and animals. And we also are cognizant of the fact that there are a number of invasive species, and our priorities are on plants, animals, and other organisms, recognizing their control is difficult and costly. So what we do through our conservation areas and also in our watershed private landowner projects, we complete areas that have, or we do invasive controls in areas of greatest negative impact. For example, in our conservation areas, if it's right around a habitat of a species at risk, then that's the first one that we address. And also in areas as the outliers, where there's new populations and they're easy to control. In our conservation areas, we also assist with research for control of the white nose syndrome for the bats, and the eastern flowering dogwood with anthracnose, which is a fungus, destroying the tree, and we also help with education and awareness to the public. And again, for invasive species, what we have to consider is the species life cycle, how the species spreads, its goals and timelines, adjacent coordinated efforts, and how this all relates to our strategic initiatives is it's providing communication with stakeholders and the public and address the community and customers' concerns. So that's just the a very brief outline of the invasive species that I was asked to present.
Thank you. Members, do you have questions for Ken on this presentation? Sandy, Doug, Mickey, okay, April. Sandy, go first.
Thank you, Chair. To you again, thanks again for the update. So you talked about how the species, the invasive species, is introduced. Is there more data as far as how it takes a foothold? Because I'm looking at some of our reports here, and in my program, I'll look at the 40-area watershed report card, and it has some subcategories to it, and it does list species at risk, but it doesn't list invasive species that may be contributing to the overall health of that particular watershed. So maybe you can just kind of briefly talk about how do the invasive species take a foothold and make eradication that much more difficult?
For you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it depends on the species, but for the most part, it'll be the environmental conditions of that species and whether it can survive or not.
So to that point then, is it a fair assessment to suggest that invasive species require the same threshold as, the naturally occurring species in that area? So for example, if there's a diminished quality in that environment, does that mean the invasive species will flourish, or does that mean it's susceptible to dying just like, a regular natural feature in that area?
Again, it will depend on the particular species, but for the most part, it's the conditions. It's hard to say without knowing the particular species. For example, I guess I could use an example of the Phragmites australis, so it needs shallow water. So if it was very deep water, odds are that it won't survive as long as a native species that would require something with deeper water.
Okay, I'm going to make a suggestion that when we do get these watershed report cards, do you think there's an element of invasive species that we can include in it? Just because I'm looking at some of the characteristics, and it does talk about species at risk, but it doesn't talk about invasive species. So when we do get our next watershed report card, and I'm looking at this one here, so 2012, and maybe my next question would be, when are we going to get some updated information with respect to our watershed report cards?
Thank you, Sandy. Kim, are you able to answer that question about the updates?
Updates for the watershed report cards? No, I'm not familiar with all of it, but I believe I can answer the question about including invasive species on the watershed report card. So provided that the information on the variety of different species that are out there, and they record invasive species, then we can record what the percentage of invasive species are in that watershed.
Okay, so to that, then we're actually relying on other agencies to bring that information forward, or is that something the NPCA
Yes.
is involved in?
It would be other agencies who are collecting information on invasive species.
And they do that collection though, throughout the watershed, or is it very specific throughout the region that they're doing that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there is information on specifics of a particular watershed I'm not certain on. I'd have to look further into that as to the detail that they have on that information.
Okay, then maybe a report coming forward on that particular issue as far as where we're getting our information from, what agencies report invasive species, and I'll look forward to maybe.
Well, we know the agencies that report it. One of them is the Ontario Invasive Plants Council, but it's the percentage of invasives in our particular area or a particular watershed of our administrative watershed that I can look further into.
Okay, all right.
That's a detail that you want for the watershed report.
Well, from our perspective, is it adequate, the information that we're getting from the other reporting agencies? Is there more work that has to be done? I don't know those answers, so I'd like to know those answers.
Okay, thank you. Member Nunziata, we will note in the minutes your request for a report on the inclusion of invasive species status in our watershed report cards. All right? Great, thank you for that. I have a couple other members with questions for Kim, starting with Doug and then Mickey and April. Doug?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll be quick. Kim, thanks for the presentation. Just a couple of quick questions. There's a few hot topics of conversation around West Lincoln. One of them is the emerald ash borer. How did he get here, and what was the path to get here?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Maybe Dan Brennan could probably get the specifics of it. I'm not 100% certain. I believe it came through other wood source, but I'd have to check into that.
Okay. Wasn't a trick question. It wasn't meant to be a trick question.
Oh, no, I know that. I just don't remember the details.
I think I heard that it came in from another country, actually, and that's how it got here through shipping containers, but I can't be sure of that. Anyway, my point is that, it's a very bad invasive species here that we have to deal with all across North America. And do you know of anything that's happening on the biochemical front in order to intercept this bug? Like, can we introduce another species there to?
Kim, we can ask our forester to address this question for you. Thanks. Dan, come on. come to the podium, please, and answer the members' questions.
Thanks, man.
Okay, sorry. I came in from China back in about 2001 to the Michigan area around Detroit and spread out in all directions from there, mostly by humans through the movement of firewood.
Right.
Yeah, that's the main source.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we doing anything at our ports in order to spray the containers, spray the pallets?
Yeah, that would totally be up to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. That's their job, that's from NPCA to deal with ports.
Okay, thank you for that. CFIA is in charge of that. Do you know if CFIA is implementing any such procedures?
They're looking at all measures possible. You're thinking about bringing in a predator from China, wasp, that would deal with how they deal with the emerald sport in China. But that's just in the experimental stage.
Okay, and my question, I'm not sure if you heard it, that I posted to you, Mr. Chair. Is there any biochemical improvements that are going to, help?
The only biochemical is a herbicide or pesticide called triazine, and that's more for inoculating individual trees. Controlling the population like through like a broadcast spray that you do gypsum moth, that's not available.
Is there anybody working on it at the provincial level or federal level?
Not that I know of. Like it's very difficult to control an insect. Gypsum moth, it's more of a defoliator. They're on the leaves, so when you do a broadcast spray, it's very easy to take out that population. This insect is very small, it bores into the bark of the tree. It's very hard to get through a biochemical application.
And my last question is, our deep cold here in the north is not able to evacuate?
No, we don't get cold temperatures here in Niagara. So good enough to kill the insect. Again, it's laying its eggs in the trees, so they're sort of insulated during the wintertime, but we don't get cold temperatures in this part of Canada.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dan. Mr. Chair, one more question for Kim, if I could.
Yes. Go ahead, Dan, don't go away. I think Mickey has a question for you in a minute, so. Doug, carry on.
I want to say that neonicotinoids is an invasive species. I don't want to make that connection, but later on, can you, other business, can you stick around so we can ask you a question about neonicotinoids?
Is that what
Yeah, sure you can.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Depending on how long the meeting is that another meeting?
Okay, that's fair.
Certainly.
Fair enough. Yeah. It may be a question we can address at the next meeting as well. Mr. Mayor Joyner, that maybe because this is, there are going to be time limitations on today's meeting. So let's just take that note, is that sort of a status update on the neonicotinoids and the Honey Nut Cheerios honeybee campaign, and has to deal with the situation with the pollinators across the country, really. So we'll defer that question until next meeting.
That's fine, that's fair.
Thank you. Mickey, you're next.
And this is just some suggestions. Why don't we inform the school boards and bring it up for in classes? And the second thing is have some workshops. We organize the workshops where we can go in and where we can pull them out and destroy them without using chemicals. Because if you're going to be using school children, you don't want to be using chemicals.
You're speaking to the Phragmites?
The other thing is, we got the Air Cadets, Boy Scouts, Girl Guides, all these people will come out. They have a couple of workshops during the summer, or, when the plants are, before they seed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the suggestion is that we engage some of the public in terms of addressing various invasive species. I think you were speaking to the Phragmites to start with, but there may be opportunities, and we do a little bit of that already. Can you just answer that for us?
Yes, we have had some volunteer events at our conservation areas, and some examples included garlic mustard. So we provided them with information on garlic mustard, how to control it, what the concerns were, and then they assisted us in removing some, and that was at our Balls Falls Bartel property. And we had to complete that for 5 years contiguous, and we've seen the population of garlic mustard decrease significantly. And that was hand blown without chemicals.
Thank you. So maybe your suggestion is noted. And I have Member Jeffs with another question for Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quickly, I don't think it was mentioned in your presentation, but I've had several complaints about, I think it's called wild parsnip. Does that sound familiar? Okay, and so apparently we have quite a bit of it along Regional Road 27 in Wainfleet, going out to the Wellandport area. So I've had one resident in particular call me about it, and I did put her in touch with staff. I think David Eric had directed her to somebody, and they were going to talk about it again in the spring. But I know I've had other residents mention it to me, and I think you can be really allergic to it from what they had mentioned. So is this something that we're looking at as well? Is it on our radar at all?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we look at invasives on all our conservation areas. I can speak specific to that. And again, it's within focus of safety for the public using our property, and also depending on the extent of the establishment of it. If it's a fairly large population, then we look at how it's affecting other things on the site, such as species at risk, and address that first, in addition to safety for the public.
Okay, so if it's not on the NPCA properties, then it doesn't fall within kind of the mandate of the NPCA. It would be something like, let's say, with being Regional Road 27, that the region would have to look into doing something. Probably though, in maybe referring back to the NPCA for advice on how to do that, like you would partner with them to a certain extent.
Certainly, not provided advice to anyone who asks.
Okay, all right, because it's an issue out our way, so you might hear from them soon via myself.
Thank you, Mayor Jepson. I think that is one of the issues we deal with generally, is that we certainly have the expertise, and we certainly invite the municipalities to draw on our expertise, and some of these species have to do with the drainage, road ditches, and roadside properties. So we have the expertise, and we certainly invite municipalities to use that. Member Darge, to that issue?
Well, I just have one question, and I could probably least from that too, but a coordinated effort, because it's on provincial highways, it's on school boards, it's on, actually I've got it on my farm, I don't know how I got it there. Is there a coordinated effort to, I mean, it doesn't do any good if one person gets rid of it, the next person doesn't. So is there any kind of a coordinated effort in that regard?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the coordinated effort is through, they're trying to do such coordination through the Ontario Plan Management Council. May have got the wording a little mixed up with their name, but they do that information, they provide the information, and they try to coordinate people that have organized workshops to help strategize how to do that.
Thank you, members. Carmen, okay, have we exhausted questions to Kim for the moment? Then I'd like Carmen to speak to a couple of the issues that have been raised. Thanks.
Okay, on the first issue on watershed report cards, so we used to produce a watershed report card annually. It was always presented to this board, and because we do collect the data, and we do collect it annually. In 2012, Conservation Ontario consolidated and put together a template of how all 36 conservation authorities can report similarly in the same manner, and that went to a frequency of 4 to 5 years. So in 2012-13, we adopted that frequency. So in the event we have the information through Peter's team, in the event you want a watershed report card annually, we can revert back to our past practice. Well, we're currently right now following the frequency as set by Conservation Ontario.
Member Nunziata, I think that was your question, so please.
That's my question. So just so I'm clear, the data is available, it just isn't produced in a public way as per the conservation. Okay. All right. I'll probably bring forward something that and I'll probably work with staff on that one. So I'll refer to staff and I'll ask those questions, and hopefully we can develop a more thorough reporting mechanism.
Thank you. Carmen, further issues?
And So as Kim has described, we provide advice to people who call us on the issue, but we don't currently have financial resources or a mandate to tackle this significant problem that we see within our watershed. We do know there's some provincial and federal initiatives. We're hoping that that comes with some financial resources so we can do the work. But right now we don't, other than giving advice, we don't have yet a mandated role in dealing with invasive species.
Thank you, Carmen. Well, members, and thank you, Kim and Dan, for your presentation, your parts in this presentation. I would ask Mr. Brickle for any further comments you'd like to make on that Operation Status Report number 23.
I think we would like to just carry on with the gourd area.
The photographs of gourd area, sure. Please do.
Okay, so I was asked to provide a photo update on the gourd area trail section that the Niagara Regional Wind Corporation has an agreement with the Conservation Authority to use. And it's very brief. So these photos are with respect to the agreement, and it's the section that they are using. We're only at the monitoring. We're only at the monitoring portion, or the monitoring stage, and we will be completing the assessment later with the details of the proposed construction design, as well as during the same season during foliage. So this is traveling along the trail, starting at the very eastern section of the portion of trail that they're using, and we're looking west. So you can see the road is, the update is the road is in, and they are currently using it. You see there's still a number of trees located on both sides. And in this section here, about midway, they have it's about 1 lane width, and then here they have 2 lane width, so it looks like it's the length of a tractor trailer to permit someone to pull to the side so someone can go by. They installed a new culvert with permit from the Conservation Authority. And now this is looking west, looking east. So we're at the eastern extent of the trail portion that they're using, and if you look a little. Sorry about that. I don't know where the button is, the red dot on here. But you can see the width of the existing road that they installed, and then you can see the trail width in the distance. The next photo should focus in on that, but I may have thrown a button again. Yeah. I guess that's all it is. But you can see the extent. No.
Gonna hit me with that laser plane.
I can point out my hand. So this is the extent of the road that they installed, and that is the width of the trail.
For further update, a total of 28 trees were removed. Obviously working with the rule that no tree that didn't absolutely have to come down would not come down. Of those 28 trees, almost all of them were very, very small trees. Some of them, literally an inch in diameter. So very, very small trees, very few impacts, and all trees that are going to be removed along our section of the trail have been removed, so there won't be any additional trees. The real study, or the real impacts will better be noted in June. Once the vegetation has come back in, we'll have a better sense of what the full impact has been. Up until now, we can only give you, a general sense of what's happened. It won't be until June when we see the vegetation that we'll actually know for sure where we are.
Thank you. I have a couple of members interested in asking a question. Rob Sheridan and then Tony.
Thank you, through the chair. Kim, thanks for the photo, Elgin. I know when this project before was approved and endorsed here, there was a lot of concern about the damage to the wildlife, specifically some of the local animals that reside there, and turtles and stuff, and then the tree damage. What is the time frame? Because I do travel that area a fair bit. It does connect to Haldeman with the Blue Heron Trail, and I do know timelines. It's still going to be operational to the public, because I do know there's people that do use the trail a fair bit, and you mentioned about a June update. They're going to be in and out as far as installation of these turbines prior to, say, June? Thanks.
Mark, can you answer that question?
The trail the public is able to use the trail right now. All the equipment is basically, it only would impact the trail on any given day for a very short period. So there's, most of the equipment is now at the site that has been delivered.
Yes, Mark, and when do you think they're going to be done at that site? Any idea?
I actually don't have that. We'll have that for you for next meeting, because we're going to have a more fuller update on the whole project for the next board meeting.
Fair enough.
So I have Tony and then April.
Thank you. Just for you to give Mark, the pictures that you showed us today are great, showing the current status. When you do your next report, you have the pictures that you took initially for us, that we can have a side-by-side comparison. I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah,
that's the pictures that you take in the future to spring the growth is there. So before, during, current would be great.
That will be part of the fuller update coming next board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. April?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to Member Shirton. It's August, you're saying, Doug's saying August 6th, because they have to be 90% completed, the entire project, by August 6th. So I think by then it'd be safe to say they'd be done out that way. And so my first thing is a comment, and again, it would have been nice to maybe have this included in our package. I know it's just a handful of pictures, but just to, have a look at it and get any questions prepared. So I wanted to make that comment. I don't even know if we really knew this. I didn't see it when I reviewed this. Was it mentioned anywhere in that there would be this presentation? Or was this kind of a last minute?
When did, so the question is, when did we add this? Was this listed on the original agenda distributed to the board members?
Yeah, we received direction at the last board meeting to give an update with photographs of the current status of the Port Area Trail, and so that's what we have provided. You got the current status. What I'm hearing now is that next time we report, we show the baseline when we took the original photographs, the current today's status, and then as it's progressing. So we're taking that as direction.
Okay, and then my question, I have two questions. One is, have we received, so Mark, you're saying the trail has been open most of the time, but on the times that it was closed when they were bringing all the construction material in and equipment, did you have any complaints? Did anyone call the Conservation Authority to complain about not being able to access the trail?
I have received 0 complaints.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. And then just some of so the one picture, Kim, that you showed was, you said that was the road, and then so you were kind of showing the scale of the width of the road compared to the trail. So the trail, it's kind of hard for me to tell. So obviously the trail then hasn't really been widened at all. Like it hasn't really been modified, or has it? I'm just curious kind of how the trail has changed. I haven't been out there, and I probably should take a drive and a walk out there. Maybe I can borrow your black lab. And but yeah, I'm just curious if it's been widened much. Hard for me to tell.
Yeah, 3 meters, Mr. Chair. So the distance of the trail is roughly, I would say, 3 meters. And then at this portion here, it's the width of a road. So 2 lanes. And then farther down, it's just the width of one lane. So that's roughly 10 meters, and here it would be roughly 15, I would say.
Okay, I get it. And so
So it's wider.
is this where our municipal road allowance kind of intersects?
Yes, so it
Okay.
bends to the north, so we're looking east here. It's at the furthest eastern extent of the portion of the trail that they're using.
So we're going back to, can't even think of the road, but I know exactly where you mean. Okay, that provides clarity then. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, members. Lisa did note in the agenda, perhaps next time she will say presentations. But it's listed under this report, there's 3 bullets. So we'll make that, when we deliver the agenda, we'll say presentation, just to help you see that. Okay, members, I would like at this point then a motion to receive for information the operation status report number 23. And Mark, as I asked before, any further comments on that report that you'd like to bring to our attention?
The only comment I would make is that it's the great weather and the early approval of the capital budget has really allowed us to get a lot of work done. I think you're going to be very pleased. I think campers returning are going to have a great experience. We've got a waiting list at Chippewa Creek. A lot of good things happening, and we're working on a business plan for Balls Falls and the Center for Conservation right now. So we're going to have a number of good things coming forward, but really this great weather and the early approval for the capital projects is making a huge difference. Moving on some of those larger ones like the really improved fishing piers that you see at Chippewa Creek, at St. John's Pond, and at Binbrook. The splash pad project is moving forward at Binbrook. A lot of really good work, and the campers are going to come back to a new experience. Where you will hear something will probably be at Long Beach, where unfortunately because of the ash tree situation, 180 trees had to be removed there. We do have we want to get involved with getting a lot of replanting done. But there's also been a lot of improvements at that park, so I think campers are going to see that. We've certainly communicated that those trees are going to be coming down. That's probably the only unfortunate thing, but otherwise a lot of really good activity in our parks.
Hey, Mark. April, would you be so good as to move receive for information as well?
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure.
Thank you. And you have further questions?
Just 2 questions really quick for Mark. One was, you mentioned there's lots of good things happening, and I just want to know the status of the Lakewood property. I know we have a master plan that's hopefully underway soon. Do you know when we're going to kind of start rolling that process out?
Thank you for that question. Yes, it'll actually be going out. We'll be seeking a consultant next week. We will, before doing that, we will actually be meeting with Michael Sullivan just to look for opportunities to share with what Wayne Creek's doing and to make sure we're aligning on that front. So yeah, that project will be moving forward next week.
Well, that sounds really good. I appreciate that. And then my other quick question was, it says here Wainfleet Acquisition Property, and I can't for the life of me remember what that is. It was just talking about resource inventory, monitoring locations, and some of the just obtaining information. But in the end, it said about providing a baseline for site management and site use decisions. So which property is that?
You're referring to the same property. And they're just establishing the ecological baseline, which will feed into the consultant's work as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So in the future, we'll use one name for that property. Okay, thank you. So I have a mover, April, seconded by Member Joyner. Doug, receive that report for information. And the Secretary, Lisa, has made notes on those various questions. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. The next item is the Corporate Services Status Report, number 24. Members, can I have a mover and seconder to receive for information? Tony and Doug. Sorry, I lost the member clerk. Go back to first names for a while.
Do we have any comments from staff that need to be made on this report?
saying no, so I will call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Updated year-end draft operations and capital budget summary, report number 25. Members, do you have any questions to that? Can I have a mover and seconder? Tony, budget chair, moves. It's good to know. Seconded by Patrick, member Dart. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next item is, and I think this should be called the draft annual report, but members should have that in your package. Ask for a motion to receive and approve the draft as presented. Member Diodati, Mayor Diodati moves, seconded. Member Annunziata, where's your name, Sandy. All those in favor? That's carried. Yes, maybe I shouldn't need it. That's carried. Thank you. Now, the Conservation Act review update, report number 27. I would like a mover and a seconder, and I've asked Carmen to give us a little update while we're at it. So, can I have a mover and a seconder, Brian and Jim? Please go ahead, Carmen.
Okay, so board members, what you'll see in this report is the consultants that the province engaged under the feedback they've received to date from the various stakeholders. And so that's included in your package for your review. We are now waiting for the province to put out if they do any action items from this, or if they go to a secondary consultation phase, we're waiting for the province to take the next step. The chair, vice chair, and I attended Queen's Park Day hosted by Conservation Ontario. We did receive a presentation from both the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry and the Deputy Minister, who indicated to the state that some follow-up actions items may come about. So we're waiting for that. What I did in this report is summarize the consultant's report, and on the right-hand column, some of our activities that related to some of the findings. So I present that as your information.
Thank you. And members, I just would comment that I'm pleased to see that the positions that we have taken have been reflected by a number of conservation authorities across the province. And so we're very much in tune with the concerns that a lot of the conservation authorities have, and that we're being an advocate and being proactive and taking our position to the province. As I mentioned earlier, I think that's the approach this board wants to take, that the representatives on this board represent the public, and the public position of this watershed is being taken to the province as they review this act. So please have a good review of that. I think you'll see everything in there that we're interested in is being captured. The minister did say that the next round, in the process, is a smaller working group to work with the province to develop the new act or the new regulations. So this is going to go on for another year or two. I think the mandate is have it done before the end of this government's term. So later this summer, and by fall, we may have further to report. Member Joyner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only have one comment about this, and I want to thank the CAO for breaking it down for us. It's a huge document, and there's a lot of information, a ton of information in here. My only comment is that it's good to be a leader, but it's good to have people with you when you go to the province. I see Niagara as being a leader, but I also sometimes see the province as seeing us as lack of a better word, being a bit of a pest. So what are we doing, Mr. Chair, as far as getting other CAs on board all across Ontario to be more vocal with the province and really take this to heart, the good work that Niagara is doing?
We are, I guess the simplest answer is that we attend the Conservation Ontario meetings, and I have established a working relationship with other board chairs. We participated in the Conservation Ontario tour of the one particular, they do this every 2 years, I guess. So we are establishing a working relationship with the other board chairs so that we find out where the common interests are, and that we like to be leaders, but we don't want to stick out like a sore thumb, if that's what you're thinking. So we are developing those relationships at the board level and at the staff level. Carmen is participating in the staff level meetings as well. So we take your advice and your comment that we should be working with the other conservation authorities to see where our common ground is.
So thanks for talking about what the CAO is doing too as well, because that was going to be my next question. What are the working groups that the CAOs of all the CAs, where we use a lot of acronyms here, are doing to get everybody on board, so we're speaking with the same common language when we go to the province, so it doesn't look like big bad NPCA coming down in the province again. But I think you answered that, so thank you for that.
I'll ask Carmen to give you the answer regarding what CAOs are doing across the province. Thanks. Carmen?
Through your chair to Mayor Joyner, I first want to respectfully state, I'm not sure where the commentaries that were passed to the province. They positioned their discussion papers, they asked for comment, we provided comment. And we provided comment based on questions that they posed. And we see similar responses coming from municipalities and coming from all our stakeholders. For example, in our comments we said that we require more provincial funding to do our mandate. That was said by landowners, that was said by environmental groups, that was said by a number of different stakeholders. So I wouldn't characterize it that we're past that. The chair and I, we met with the parliamentary assistant, and that was never been indicated to us. It's in that. However, now specific to the question of our involvement, the chair sits on 2 AMO task forces on the Conservation Authorities Act review and also on the Ontario Wetland Strategy due to his not only being a municipal representative but also his involvement with the Conservation Authority. Myself, I sit on the General Manager's working group for the Conservation Authorities Act review. So that's all the CAOs, all the 36 conservation authorities. We've retained Strategy Corps as a consultant to advocate collectively on our behalf all the issues. So we attend meetings, we come to consensus of what are the issues, and then we forward it to the province. That's currently our involvement. But it's a provincial process, and we're following their lead.
Good, Mr. Chair, thanks for that update.
So we're not a past, but they know we're here. Thank you.
Well, we can speak online, Mr. Chair.
Right. Okay. Member B.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just an overall question. You're looking at the marine, you're looking at the Greenbelt, they're looking at the NEC revising the NEP, they're looking at the CA. You've got all of this in front of them. We spent years, I know the NEC has spent 3 years reviewing the NEP. I think the Greenbelt is now about 2 years old. In your discussions, is there any indication that there's going to be any changes? Is there any indication that after we do all this, on the 4 biggest initiatives for green space, that the province is going to change it? Because I keep hearing that there'll be very little change.
The parliamentary assistant, Eleanor McMahon, is leading the 2 reviews that we're most engaged in, and that's the Wetland Policy, Wetland Strategy, and the Conservation Authorities Act. She has been in my encounters with her both at AMO and Conservation Ontario and other meetings, is that she's very interested in responding to a lot of the common messages that are hearing. But she is, as a parliamentary assistant to the minister, she is cautious about promising change. But my understanding, my perception is that she's hearing several very strong common messages, and she's indicated to us that she's serious about drafting So the next round is the smaller working group that will work with her office to recommend changes. So if that's a political answer, I think it is most reflective of the truth. Nobody's making big promises, but it seems like they are very much adhering to what the conservation authorities and municipalities and the landowners and all of those stakeholders are saying.
Go ahead.
Just a follow-up, because I know in some cases I've heard that they're going to try and implement a 10-year review process. I keep hearing this 10-year review, 10-year review. And yet it takes them 5 years to review it. By the time we're finished, it's going to be, I think, a 4 to 5 year review on a 10-year cycle. I keep getting this overall impression that they're not going to change anything. I hope they do. There's a lot of room for change, but I just get a dour feeling. It's going to be all for nothing. I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you are too. That's why we're putting
I have so much faith in the Liberal government.
Well, welcome to municipal world. It's taking 5 years to get a 5-year review done. April.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just your comments about Eleanor McMahon, and a little bit to what Mayor Joyner, I think, was trying to express politely. I met with Eleanor, one of my aldermen and I, primarily to talk about the wetlands. It was Alderman Hessels who was with me, and he's a farmer, and it's a concern. But also, we did also touch on floodplain mapping when we met with her. Now, with regard to the biodiversity offsetting, we asked about that, and they, it was a couple months or a month and a half ago, but they kind of made it sound like I had explained to them how we had done this big presentation, and people had come out en masse and were angry and upset, and I think, and this is just my opinion, our communication strategy was wrong on that. We just got people wound up right away without really kind of explaining. I know that's what you tried to do that night, and I wasn't here, so it's hard for me to kind of make, I shouldn't be making assumptions, but so I mentioned that to them and said it seems to be hugely controversial already, and we haven't even really done anything. And I asked them why they would be entertaining this, and then they made it sound like they just kind of put it out there, but you really didn't have to kind of take the aggressive, and those are my words, that seemed like a bit of an aggressive, let's put this out there and see what happens. So I think there's a disconnect between us, between you two particularly, and the province, because they, there were a few things that I discussed with them, and they kind of look, and I don't know who's right, and so they kind of put it back like, no, we didn't say you had to do this. So I think that's kind of what Doug was alluding to a little bit, that I think they question, and we know that there have been in the past term, letters sent from a local MPP, and that, we are a little bit controversial. I think if we say we're not, then I don't know, we're just sweeping it under the rug. So I think that's where maybe, we need to have a better dialogue. I don't know how we would do that. Like, you're going up, you're talking to the province on the NPCA and on the board's behalf, and we're just kind of, I feel like, oh, okay, we got our reports and we're going along. But I just found there was a different message when I met there that day, and so then that concerns me, kind of goes back to the points that Sue's raising about this, and I even wonder with this conservation authority, I know they give in their discussion paper at the beginning the kind of broad reason why they're doing this, but when I saw they were doing this, I thought, oh, they're getting tired of the complaints, not just from us, but conservation authorities across Ontario. We hear this. To some people, conservation authority is a very bad word, and so again, I know I'm repeating myself, it's like that disconnect from the province. So those are just and that's strictly just my opinion, based on a brief delegation with her, but I was surprised.
Well, I do appreciate the feedback from you on those meetings, because we are getting a little different message, but that's fair ball in this political process. They've come to, and we probably missed when we got started on really presenting the provincial mandate, and we can perhaps bring that to the next meeting, is the provincial ask on the wetland review specifically. They very specifically said that we're going to review our strategy and we are proposing no net loss. What we put forward, and I again say as a board being proactive, we put forward is never mind no net loss, 3, 4, 1, improving. And that's the offset. So that's what we are, maybe aggressive, I prefer to look at it as proactive, but as I think I made the point to a staff meeting, is that we're not, as a board, as a watershed, want to stand by and let the province come up with a policy on their wetland strategy without hearing from us. And we thought that perhaps the most constructive approach is to put forward what we call the notion of a pilot project using biodiversity offsetting on a 3 for 1 option. So maybe there's common ground in that message somewhere, but they definitely asked all the conservation authorities to comment on their wetland strategy, and we have responded in, I think, a very proactive way. Prefer to do it that way than wait for Queen's Park to hear from everybody else and then come down and land something on the Niagara watershed without at least putting forward some options that we feel justified in putting forward. So the public meeting that we held, it was at the request of some conservation authorities or some conservation interest groups wanting to hear about this policy. So we were endeavoring to put forward an information meeting. And I think that's where we are, maybe sticking out a bit, maybe sticking out with a green thumb for conservation authorities, not all bad. So I hope with the proactive approach we're taking on that is will be helpful and bring better policy for this watershed and for our citizens than what might come if we just leave it to Queen's Park, centered on their Toronto constituency, and without hearing from us. Doug?
Thanks for wrapping that up, Mr. Chair. I think you made a lot of good points there, to be honest with you, and it all comes down to what is our mandate and what is the provincial mandate. My only point to this is that it's great to be a leader, but let's bring everybody together. Let's bring all the CAs across Ontario speaking with the same language, because I just feel that the province thinks that we're a little bit aggressive down here in Niagara, and maybe we are, and maybe that's what we want as board of directors. That's something that we're going to have to come to terms with. But I mean, it's never a bad thing to bring all constituents across Ontario to speak with one voice of the province, and therefore I hope in doing that they're going to get it right. That's my point.
Thank you. And that's why we're working with Conservation Ontario. So members, on that report, then I would like at this point to ask for a mover and seconder to receive report number 27. James and Stuart, what do we have? All right, members, we already have a mover and seconder. That was Brian and Jim. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now, final information report is the forestry update, report number 28. Dan had spoken to the Emerald Ash borer issue, I think. Members, I'd like a mover and a seconder to receive that report for information. James and Stuart on this one. You ready for the question, members? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next item is the Niagara Remedial Action Plan Report 29. The motion is that the board approve the NPCA to continue to provide the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change with project management and coordination services for the implementation of the Niagara River Remedial Action Plan through the approval of the 2016-2017 RAP agreement. Members, the agreement is in your package. Do I have a mover and a seconder? I think I saw Sandy and James. Any questions? Sandy and Rob. Go ahead, Sandy.
Thank you, Chair. So we are on schedule for delisting in 2020. Is that a fixed date, or is there an opportunity to accelerate that?
Carmen, if you can approach that, address that.
No, refer to Jocelyn.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
I'm just anxious to celebrate the delisting of the Niagara River, so.
Yeah, push mine so you can push yours. There you go.
I'm just going to repeat the question, to make sure I understood it. The question was, is 2020 a firm date for delisting?
Correct.
Yes, it is. As reflected in the agreement, what happens, what will happen, March 31st of 2020 is the actions are completed and they move up the chain. So the actual party may not happen right at that time. There's quite a lengthy process that the information has to travel through.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Members, in the interest of time, we want to move this along, so I'll ask Rob's question to be brief. And the answer is same.
Okay, quick question. Nice brochure here, and I'm not familiar with the choice of fish on the front cover, but is that the best looking fish you can find to promote in this area, or like, who chose that?
Briefly, Jocelyn, briefly.
Yeah, that is a lake sturgeon, and it is not a pretty fish. It's very prehistoric looking. The species chosen for that document are there because they are what qualifies Randler as a site of international importance.
Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Members, are you ready for the question? All those in favor? That carries them. Thank you. And thank you, Jocelyn, for the great work you've been doing
My pleasure.
on Ramsar. We hope to be able to get that people along with the delisting. Thank you. Next item is the capital surplus reserve status report number 30. And there's a quite a long motion there. I'll avoid reading the whole thing. I hope everybody's had a chance to read that motion. And do I have a mover and seconder? Stuart and Nikki. David, can I ask you to come forward to make some comments? I do see a couple of other questions. Bill, Tony, okay.
Thank you, Chair. The only highlight that I would make at this point, what's already in the report, is specific to recommendation number 4. Because this is a draft, we don't have audited statements yet until likely next month. Recommendation number 4 does provide a balance of capital surplus in a specific amount. We are understanding at this point, since this was printed and distributed, that it may be slightly higher than that, so it is good news. But I would ask whatever the board would like to do with that recommendation, that the wording simply needs to approve the balance, and we don't have a firm number until we get that from the auditors. But it could be between $46,000 and $70,000. Just wanted to know that, Chair.
Thank you. So your suggestion is the wording be modified to say balance instead of, we put in parenthesis the current number.
Yes, sir.
But we'll use balance in the motion. So I have questions from Bill, Tony, and Stuart. And Doug. So Bill, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, I don't disagree with the decision to do the 2 purchases. I understand that is, there are items that are off of the capital budget, but I have a little concern with the process. The best practices, I believe, would have had all of the surplus transferred to reserve, and then as a separate item, if there's urgency around the 2 purchases, like that's 1, or number 2, number 3, but they would be, they're not included in the budget. They were in fact expressly excluded in the budget process. And that allowed us to come in at 0. This now is not 0. technically. So my question, again, I process to me is a little bit wrong, because I usually need to, you know, just going to directly add a project, you need to open your budget and approve it in the budget. So you just have some questions, I just want to raise that. I would normally want to see all those surplus funds transferred into the reserve. And then as a special project, we would have to deal with, you know, there might be some urgency around, for example, particularly the relators. And I can appreciate that discussion happening. But it's an add-on to a budget. So that's my point, and no one else is concerned about that process, and that's fine.
Thank you, Bill. Dave, would you be able to respond to that in terms of process and the justification included in the report for these purchases?
Right, so staff has followed the direction of the board. We were asked to bring these at $68,500 back when the surplus report came back, so that's why we've done that. With respect to going to a project versus going to a reserve, technically from an accounting perspective, those monies would in fact go into the reserve, but they would, a certain portion of the money would be dedicated to a project, the projects that we highlighted. So from where we are following the proper accounting practices, and those monies you'll see on the appendix, the reserve status, which is draft, that $500,000 going to reserves includes all the money that we see in the recommendation. So I hope that provides some context.
Great, thank you. Tony?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I'm going to echo Member Hodgson's concerns about the process that we follow on this, but I would also like to correct the fact that if we take money out of reserve, our budget still stays at zero, because our guidance is on the levy portion of the budget, not on the overall gross envelope spending of the budget. So the transfer to and from reserves doesn't actually affect our levy guidance of zero. But I would comment on two things. One is, when we have a purchase like the defibrillators that is actually made in year and it's brought to the board after the fact, that is an in-year adjustment to the budget and should be reflected in the statements as opposed to now trying to find funding for it. So they should actually contribute to if everything else being equal, it would result in a capital deficit because we wouldn't have funded those items. So I would like to see that more clearly identified in future reports when we make in-year purchases. And further, that if the surplus is going into, or the balance is going into a conservation area capital reserve, then I agree with Member Hodgson that the wording of the $68,500 for the galvanized trailer storage should be coming out of the conservation, should be coming out of the same reserve, and should be identified as that effect. So those were my two comments. That kudos to staff for keeping the capital budget under budget and generating a surplus. And I do like the fact that we are going to still, with all this, be transferring more money into reserves to meet the strategic goal of reducing our requirement of reserves. So I think that goes well for us on a go-forward basis. So with those two comments, I'm happy to support the motion. I would like to ask, are we still intending to appeal the decision for the land transfer tax requirement under item 5?
So thank you for that question, Mr. Chair. We learned, in fact, just yesterday from our legal advice that at this point, legal advice is to not proceed with further action on an appeal. So this was written and distributed last week, and we received that legal advice yesterday. So it is unlikely that we will, in fact, have any real legal claim for appeal on that item.
Thank you for the clarification. I have questions from Stuart and go ahead, Stuart, you have the floor.
Mine's not really a question. I'm going to ask the board if I can spend some of this money. And let me explain. I have two requests. If you go back to the staff report on Pembroke CA, we've got down there on the Capitol that we're gonna upgrade the washroom. And it's all great, it's all good stuff, I agree with it, but they forgot the roof. And the roof's about $10,000. So I would ask you to approve $10,000 from the surplus to put a new roof on. And the reason being, one, we need a new roof. We could probably let it go for another year, but in 2017, with the splash pad and the C-150 grant, and we're gonna have a hell of a party, pardon my English, we're gonna have a heck of a party on July the 1st at Pembroke. And I'd like to make it as pleasing as possible, and putting a new roof on that washroom would go a long way. So I'm going to ask the board, and I'm prepared to make a motion, that we take $10,000 out of this and put it to a new roof on the Pembroke washrooms. That's my first request. You want to deal with that, and I'll make a second request?
Thank you. Yes, I think we'd be looking for an amendment to this motion, and I would need a seconder. So James. So moved by Stuart, seconded by James, that this motion be amended to, with the appropriate number adjustments, we approve the staff move ahead with the replacement of the roof in the amount of $10,000. Basically.
I'm told $10,000 will give us a new steel roof.
That'll
look good.
So I ask for staff comment to that amendment, and then take questions or speakers to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's completely appropriate now. Is the perfect time to make such requests on the use of the reserve or of the surplus. Thank you.
So with a month delay, so we have a proper report and do it next month, make any difference to timing, construction, and the smile on Stuart's face there, just disappear. Carmen, could you answer that for us?
Thank you, Chair. It's a member request. If I can respectfully submit, the staff report is that, we need a new roof at the book.
Okay, thank you. So staff acknowledges the roof is needed. Members, anyone want to speak to the amendment? Then I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? That carries. Now, further, Stuart, to the amended motion?
No, I'm going to make another amendment.
No. Okay.
In our discussions of the master plan, we have ongoing meetings of the master plan. We're about to sit down in Pembroke with the original master plan committee that struck the plan. In that discussion, it came up that we really do need a park water assessment and a park wastewater assessment. We're moving with the splash pad. We're going to be looking at a new pavilion in another year, but we're going to have to do a water assessment, and we're going to have to do a wastewater assessment before we can move, before we can price, before we can come back to you and say, it's going to take this much money. So I'm going to ask you for another $20,000 out of this surplus to do those assessments so that we have them ready to go, because I've got a really good feeling about 2017 and grants. I'd like to be ready to go and have those assessments in our back pocket. So I would ask for another amendment for $20,000 to proceed with those two assessments. Thank you.
You have a secondary and member Shurkin. I'd ask staff for comments on are we prepared, are we able to, and you feel comfortable with the budget numbers suggested by member Stewart, member Beattie. I guess I'll take that question to Mr. Brickle, under operations.
Thank you. I think $5,000 was set aside for that type of work this year. It's clear in preliminary scoping that a budget of approximately $20,000 would be more appropriate for the work that needs to be done. It is timely, especially with the splash pad going in. we are going to have to make sure that we have, there are going to be some water upgrades required, and I anticipate we will probably be coming back to you with a request for some monies to come from reserves to address some of those water improvements that will be immediately required. So certainly the recommendations appreciated. It's up to the board, but we accept full expression of that.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that the $20,000 number is appropriate from staff. And are there any further questions to this amendment? Budget Chair Tony.
So just for clarification, there was $5,000 in the 2016 budget, we think it should be 20,000, or are we looking for 20,000 additional? So is your motion to allocate an additional 15,000, or are we looking at another full 20,000?
I would look to staff to comment when I asked about what do we need to move it forward. I was told we need the water assessment and the wastewater assessment. And I was told at that time $20,000 would do. So if there's already 5 there, I defer to staff to say whether we need 15 in the motion or 20. I'm just going by the general numbers I was given.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. Mark, perhaps you can help us out.
20,000 total is correct. I'm hoping my memory is correct with respect to the 5,000. But if we can work with the understanding that it's 20,000 total, then that would either be 15,000 if there is, I think there is 5,000.
Can we just add the wording gross funding to 20,000, and if there's 5,000 in the budget, that's
and that would work for us.
All right, I've asked the CAO to give us some clarification in how we need to word this particular amendment. We know that we have the 20,000 for the project, whether we look at this amendment for 15 or 20, it's what I asked Carmen to address.
So my understanding, thank you, Chair, my understanding of the motion, to clarify, the $5,000 that we have set aside in the budget is to do the assessment, which is part of the splash pad project. What I'm understanding from Member B is that he would like additional studies that support the whole master plan beyond the splash pad, which would be 20,000 in addition, in order to prepare ourselves that in the event that there's some federal or provincial grant funding on infrastructure, we would already have the assessments, so we would be, shovel ready to make those applications. So it would be a 5 plus 20, is my understanding of the request.
So Member B, from that question, that answer, I think your motion was for 20, and probably we can stick with that. But I see Tony is raising his hand for the question.
I'm only going to add as commentary to that comment, if we're already doing an assessment, we have someone there for $5,000, certainly there must be some economies of scale if you're going to do the full assessment. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm happy to support the original motion.
Okay, yeah, your interest is noted by staff, and we'll attempt to achieve that. So it's a maximum of 20, sir. Members, are we ready to vote on that amendment? All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Then further to the amended motion. Well, that's Mayor Budget Chair. Tony, do you have further questions?
So I just want to, again, and I did see whether Member Hodgson put up this in or not, but I just want to go to the commentary with respect to this sort of process on our budget. It isn't the way to run a railroad to do these sort of ad hoc type requests. So if we talk about the surplus going forward in 2017, where we talk about the next phase of the budget, I think we should actually have a list of priority projects or some sort of request to staff prior to the meeting so they can be aware ahead of time too, so we don't, or to members, saying so we don't get caught like in the heat of the moment to just throw an extra $30,000 around.
Okay, I think the staff will have taken note of your comments and Bill's concerns as well. Well, staff will note as well. All right, thank you. So members, are you ready for the main question? As amended.
Can I get that repeated, please? Can I get that repeated, Chair? With that, just so we go down
The main motion. Okay. It is the recommendation 47. There are 5 recommendations. Now, we've added 2 more in terms of spending the 20,000 and the 10,000 for the roof. And with some notes about the process. So members, are you ready for and so some of the numbers will be duly adjusted. James, is there any motion?
Mr. Chair, I just have a couple of wish list items which I just want to throw out there, if it's still time.
Perhaps you could bring the wish list to the next meeting, member Cassidy says. Mr. Beatty came prepared, I see. Thank you. So I will call the question then on the amended motion. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Next item of business, members, is the report number 31, and that is the recommendation that the Board of Directors approve the issuance of an RFP in order to determine management compensation levels, and that the NPCA award the RFP in accordance with the parameters established within the document. A subsequent board report and associated presentation be prepared at a meeting of the board in the fall of this year, of 2016. Carmen, would you speak to this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So we have the report before you. We're giving you 3 options. The last meeting, the board asked me to prepare a RFP for a overall management compensation review. I have that, providing some options. Staff is looking for direction.
The members to the motion, I need the mover and seconder first, but I'll recognize Member Quirk.
Sorry, I would move receipt of the report and move that the board adopt recommendation number 2 at this time.
All right, let's recommendation number 2 or option number 2. Sorry. Okay. There are 3 recommendations. You need a mover, and we do have a motion now from Member Quirk. And there are 3 paragraphs within the recommendation.
Sorry, I am looking at recommendation number 2. In lieu of issuing an RFP, adopting the recommendation contained in report CR 1216 regarding compensation for directors.
Okay, so let's we receive the report, and the motion is receive the report and adopt option 2.
Option 2 identify the report. I can speak to that at this time.
Oh, so I need a seconder?
I'm happy to second. I'm happy to second it, but I'm just confused. Are there 3? Looks to me 1 recommendation.
Yeah.
1 recommendation of 3 parts. Are you suggesting one of those 3?
Yeah, Tony, if you could clarify.
Sorry, just to clarify, I'm taking the attitude that when we make a motion that if we choose not to go with the recommendation report that we would alter the recommendation. So what I am doing is actually asking to receive the report and to take recommendation, not the recommendation, state option number 2 that is listed in the last paragraph of page 1, adopting the recommendation in the previous report, CR 1216, and I'm happy to speak my rationalization for that.
So I'm happy to vote to put that on the floor.
So you are. So I'll take you as the seconder for Member Quirk's motion. So Member Quirk, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, members. If you recall, we had a couple reports on management compensation at this board level, specifically with respect to the director's level compensation. The issue that was presented, or the option was presented for us in that report that I've referenced was for a gradual increase in the status and recommendations of the director salaries to bring them into line with what is found with our 6 comparator groups that were provided at the time. The problem I have with the issuing of a $30,000 RFP to do a management compensation review when these positions are clearly identified on the sunshine list. The management, for $30,000, someone's going to go through the management roles on the sunshine list and find comparables. And I cannot justify, I cannot vote for paying someone $30,000 to get information that's publicly and readily available. If we are serious about providing our staff with a compensation level that is in accordance with other CAs around the province, someone just has to pull up the compensation list from the sunshine list and make a comparison. And that doesn't require $30,000. I volunteer to do it for free if no one else wants to go through the list, but I think we have staff that can do that. And I think that that information is available. If it is for roles that are not on the sunshine list, I think we have the capability of requesting that information confidentially through Conservation Ontario. We need to know whether we are paying our staff salaries that are at the level of what they should be. If the goal of this is to now compare them to other organizations, i.e. the region, i.e. the police board, i.e. other public sector agencies, I can completely and totally, I can't oppose that strongly enough because they are different roles. And if the idea is just to compare them to titles that are existing in other public sector property entities, that's not something I would suggest. So I think, I know compensation is always a touchy subject when we talk about public sector boards, but these salaries are disclosed through the sunshine list. They are comparable through the sunshine list. That's the reason we have the sunshine list. So I just can't, and as budget chair, I just can't vote for spending $30,000 for yet another consultant to tell us what we already know. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Quirk. I would ask Carmen just to go through the scope of the RFP, just to, because it's presented by Member Quirk as a fairly limited scope, and I just wanted to help clarify for the members if there's anything additional to the scope we know was suggested.
Chair,
Thanks.
my question, why would you do that? That's not the motion on the floor. The RFP motion is not on the floor.
Okay, I'm just asking staff to consider, to explain the recommendation, and that was in the report.
But again, Mr. Chair, that recommendation is one of 3 potential recommendations.
Yeah.
That recommendation is not on the floor. So why would we discuss it any further?
For purposes of clarification. Carmen, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would submit that the direction was given to me to prepare a RFP for compensation review for the board's consideration. That's what I've done. Just so you know, and I have disclosed it in my cover report, the region just similarly did this exercise. They had presented it recently. I asked for a copy of their RFP, and I emulated a lot of the language that they had within it, rather than reinvent and use the region's RFP, and modified it to focus on conservation. So that's how I prepared the report.
Okay, thank you. And members, the RFP document is in the package, so you would have had an opportunity to review that. I think I had Bill, Member Hodgson wanted to speak to the motion on the floor. Bill?
Yeah, well, the issue regarding a $30,000 RFP, and then I noticed that there's a $9,000 impact from the recommendations. The point was the scale of the increases that we were talking. And what we wanted was a report from staff. I didn't know that we were necessarily going to go outside of this organization. We were looking for, as Tony has noted, there's information that could be put together in a report so that we could, in fact, have a business case and justification for increases that, in fact, were not entertained for other stakeholders. And I think that was the issue, and that's what we wanted to see was a business case. We didn't have a business case attached to the original report. So I'm still in a position that I wanted to see, and if we had to go into closed session to discuss it, it does involve identifiable individuals. I know that's where our discussion occurred last. I still haven't seen the business case. So I'm just making $9,000 a year look little compared to $30,000 for an outside analysis of comparators. Kind of makes you want to jump at the $9,000 per year, but we still still gonna have a business case. So I can't support it, and I'm not sure that I can support a $30,000 RFP, but I want to see a business case. And I'd like to have that discussion, back into the way we had the discussion, at a previous meeting.
So Member Hodgson, what I'm hearing from you is that the report, the motion on the floor says adopt the recommendations in the report CR 1216, which was the report on this matter we saw last month. And what you're saying is that your request for further business case in that report hasn't been met by this recommendation. And that's your point. Okay. And I think your point was you didn't need, you're speaking for or against the motion. You don't need an RFP to get that kind of a business case. Okay. Any further discussion to the motion on the floor, which is basically adopt CR 1216 from was it a month ago? Last board meeting? From 2 board meetings ago. All right. Further to the motion on the floor. Doug?
You may not like me on this, but I'm going to put a motion on the floor to refer this because I quite honestly didn't read CR 12 a second and third time. I do remember 2 or 3 reports ago that it came forward, but it's not in front of me. I think it should have been added to this package. It wasn't, and I couldn't find it. So I'm going to vote to refer this whole matter to the next meeting if I can get a seconder.
Motion. So I have a motion to defer to the next meeting, seconded by Patrick Dark, Member Dark. I'll take no discussion on that. I'll call a vote on the motion to defer for 1 cycle. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. So the deferral is carried, and we'll address this in at the next meeting. Carmen, would you be able to comment? I think I'd like a little comment on Bill's request for a further business case that perhaps back up, number 12. And so the motion that will come back is Tony's motion. Thank you. Carmen?
Okay, 2 comments. One to Mayor Joyner's reference. That report was a confidential report. We wanted to put the RFP in the public forum, and so that's why it wasn't included as an appendix. Just do that. But board members, I require, if I may respectfully ask clear direction on what you want to see next board meeting. So my understanding is that if it is the direction as requested by Member Hodgson, you're asking for staff to do an internal review on compensation levels. If that is with an attached business case, if that is the direction, then I think I got it clear. If it's to refer, is that the referral for that direction? I'm seeking clarification.
So I think the intent is a referral with additional information. So the next package does come back with the original report, CR 1216. We will of course include this report and then any further information that might be necessary. And I'd ask Member Hodgson to respond to the CAO's request for clarification.
And I agree with everything that Carmen said, except it's not just an internal review. I think Councillor Clerk mentioned the fact that there are comparator information that can be gleaned fairly easily. You don't need a consultant to get a hold of some of the comparators. And the suggestion was that through Conservation Ontario, there might be an ability to put together something of a comparator list.
Carmen, and I think it was the Sunshine List, which Tony volunteered to do for the compensation he already gets as a board member. And Carmen has a little further information, I think, on the Conservation Ontario reference.
Yes, so through the chair to Member Hodgson, we do get a survey from Conservation Ontario on compensation levels. Of the 36, less than 50% participate in that survey. So they have been trying to do it, but you don't get full capture. So if I'm going to do a comparator I could, if you find this, I need a benchmark, so what I can do, we're about 6 in large size of conservation authorities out of 36. What I can do, if you'd like, take the top 10, find all the comparators, and present it. And if that's a suitable framework, I can do that. I'll take the top 10, via the sunshine list, and present it to the board in confidence because there may be some identifiable persons.
Bill, is that satisfactory?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Jim, I think you wanted to speak to direction to the CAO for what he brings back on this deferred motion.
Yes, Chair, through you, specific to top 10, I just need to know what does that mean, top 10 in terms of geography, in terms of dollars, in terms of employees, what does that mean?
Top 10 in terms of budget, overall budget size.
And can I also ask, do we know if any of the conservation authorities gone through the RFP process to do what the 30,000 would have done?
Thank you for the question to Mayor Theodati. I did ask at the last general managers meeting. I did get responses from the Toronto Region Conservation Authority and Credit Valley that they had, one was going to do it and one had already completed it. So I have 2 benchmarks I can go to.
I was going to say, so maybe we could access that information for free if they offer it, or FOI if we needed to, because I'm assuming that's going to be involved in realm. So that might help us a little bit for our business case as well.
Okay, thank you, members. I think CAO is, Carmen, you're satisfied with the direction that you now received from the board, and we'll see this at the next board meeting. So then we need to move on, members. If we go to other business, the first item on other business is that the City of Welland has appointed Councillor Bonnie Folkens for representation on the Watershed Floodplain Committee. And we need the NPCA board to approve that appointment. So I need a mover and a seconder for a motion that reads that the Board of Directors approve the City of Welland's recommendation of Bonnie Folkens for member representation to the Watershed Floodplain Committee. Need a mover and a seconder? Nikki and Jim? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now, members, we do have to go, in camera. Is there any other business from members that you want to address today before we go to the in-camera section? Nikki, member DeFrucia from Thorold, please.
You people know, or should the board know, that, I'm sorry, about the monarch butterfly. You know, I've been very vocal about it. So I'm asking the manager of the lands if they can, out here, put a 12 by 12 piece of land for the monarch butterfly, and I'll supply the plants. I put it in front of the board if it's feasible.
Thank you, Nikki. If we could, we'll ask staff to have a look at that, and if we're able to implement that, we'll inform the board next board meeting.
Yeah, and next meeting might be too late.
I see. Okay, so do that. So what you're suggesting is that we authorize staff to go ahead and do it if there's no harmful repercussions from it.
I'll donate the plants.
Okay, Jim?
The second thing is,
Just a second.
Mickey, if I just want to ask to this point, so what's he asking for, 12 by 12 piece of land?
one with,
Okay, Mickey, this clarification, 12 feet, 12 meters.
yeah, that's good for 12 or 15 plants.
12 feet by 12 feet, planted in the lawn on the yard here with monarch-friendly.
So why don't we just do it? I mean, let's say we put some plants in 12 by 12 area, let's just do it. What's to discuss?
Okay. So we have a seconder for your motion, Mickey. And if there's anything in the way, we'll have a discussion with you if the staff have any concerns. Okay? Second item then?
When and I'll supply.
is seconder, Mickey's going to supply the plans. Mickey,
Councillor
can I
Quirk,
just call the question?
Quirk be involved too, he can do his work out in the Monarch area. He's volunteer in Alaska. It doesn't responsibility.
The other part of that, Mr. Chairman, is, you should put that in the media, so it would be like, a disease, it would be catching it to the public.
Maybe an epidemic of plantations. Okay, members, can I call a vote so we can get that authorized?
And one more item. I think Kevin's here, we give a report on the wild game supper.
Okay,
What's
cool.
going on?
All right, first we will address the Monarch plantation piece. So members, you ready for the motion, ready for the question? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Mitty. We're getting a little short on time, Mickey, and we do have a foundation meeting following this. Kevin, can you give us like 30 seconds on the game? Do we have on the dinner? Do we have any tickets, further tickets available? Carmen will take that for us. Go ahead, Carmen.
Okay, just to clarify, and I respect the question, we can respond to it. It's a foundation event, that's why it's not before the board. So it's foundation led. There is a separation of entities, and that's why we don't provide updates here. But I am being brief because we have supported the foundation activities, and so the game dinner is April 11th. My understanding it's sold out. There's significant contributions and sponsorship and raffle prizes, and that the foundation is meeting today to talk about some of the final details towards the wild game dinner. It's being held at the Legion in
Thank you, Carmen. So members, with that, I'd like to take moving camera. Bill, did you have another business item?
Just a question about, I know we're going in camera. I think I saw an email around that was going to include another topic, and isn't it more appropriate if we list all the topics? We only have one item, and if we're going to have more than one item, we should probably, one way or another in the minutes, indicate that we've added to that.
Yes, Lisa had given me that heads up. So I will ask for a motion that the meeting moves to closed session to receive an update on the Welland land transfer and an update on complaints of a violation to the region's tree bylaw and our wetlands regulations. Was there any other items, Carmen, that we're going to be considering in camera? All right, then I'll take a mover and a seconder to move in camera for those items. Bill and Rob. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And we'll take a moment then, members, before we reconvene to clear the hall, and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you.
So I'm going to launch that.